Welcome to Living in My Mind. Today's Valentine's Day, and I have a special guest, one of my dear friends, an amazing man, Mr. Clifton West, Cool Papa West from Sacktown. He's going to come on. We're going to talk about different things that are going on in different cultures, the world. Very spiritual man, an amazing man, and a big influence in my life. I want to say thank you for listening to us. And Mr. West, how you doing, my friend? All right, my friend. It's good to see you. Thank you for doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Well, the honor is mine. Believe me, brother, the honor is mine. I thought about it, over 40 years of association and fellowship with you and your family. What a blessing and a gift that's been to me and our family, really, brother. It really
it goes both ways. You know, you've been a mentor, you've been a friend, you've been a brother, you've been everything. And one of the reasons I wanted you on the show is just because of the person you are. You know, that's the beauty of it. You know, you're one of those people who bring truth to what is out there, to what your own truth is. You don't mince words. And the great thing about you that I probably got to learn in life is that you treat everybody the same. You know, you got a very level way of dealing with things, and people listen. And that's the beauty. You know, that's the most important thing for me, the way you deliver. And you've been doing this for how long? Working with people.
I tell you what, those words really resonate. They mean a lot to me because in this world and in this, on this side of time, we're not here that long, brother. So what we're really hoping for, and what I'm hoping for anyway, is that when my headstone is laid, all I want on there, they don't have to put the day I was born and the day that I left here. Just put on there my name and 2 words. He tried. That's all I was trying to do, man. I'm just trying, brother, for as long as I'm gifted to be here. And I just love what it is you're doing. I've been following what it is you're doing.
Thank you. It means a lot.
It's so important. You schooled me in so many ways. I really look forward every day to the message and the experience, that short experience that you share with us. And I just wish the whole world could really see that, because it strikes at all levels, man. It strikes us at all levels.
Trying to reach more people. That's it. It's funny that you say that, because the work that we both do, you work with a lot of people, I work with a lot of people. And the one thing is I always explain to people, if you don't try, you never know.
That's right.
And if you don't put it out there, you're never going to get anything back.
That's right.
And like you and I talk all the time, we talk about family, we talk about health, the whole temperature of this country right now with all the craziness, especially mental health.
Right.
Like you talked about, your brother's running for president. And I asked you a while back, so why is he running? Is he running to eliminate another person, take votes away? And what was your response? What's the reason he's doing this?
No, really, Cornell, it's really a calling. It's an extension of his calling that he really never thought he would be a part of. I mean, not long before he even announced, for years he talked about, people urged him to run for office. And he said, you catch me in the crack house before you catch me running for president. But you never know what the Lord has for you, And when he looked out and when he looks out, he's kind of like me on steroids. And his heart just couldn't bear it. So he's really running to be part of a new paradigm, a new movement, to where this duopoly that we're caught in this country, and as successful as this country has become, and there's so many good things that that has been a part of, and even an engine to, it still has yet to realize the greatness that its ideal was set up on some 260 years ago or more, when it was set and conceived and been evolving since then. And he felt as if this paradigm had to be changed. And it's a paradigm of love. It's telling the truth. It unsettles people on both sides. It doesn't necessarily mean that the answers are on the left or on the right. They may be, but they're not always there, because they're not set within a frame of reference to where man sets them for the agendas that all men have. So, he's of the opinion, every Biden ought to earn his votes. Trump got to earn his votes. People ought to have an option, a choice, and they ought to know about something that's become so subversive in our culture, and that is love. Something just as simple as love has become such a subversive word and a subversive concept. And so Justice for All is really the name of the movement and, that he's running for, and he's open to everybody. And the thing that I like about him, he says, you know, he tells the people, this is what I believe, but I'm not always right either. I want to hear your voice. I don't want you to be an echo. You know, I want to hear your voice just like I want my voice to be heard.
Well, see, that's the beauty of your brother and you. I mean, I've known you longer. I've only met your brother a few times, and you run the same thing. And, you know, you work with a lot of young men. And I think in our country, a lot of young men and women, the mental health issues that they've dealt with or they deal with, they don't get an opportunity. We talked about culture. We talked about the other day. We talked about people that, you know, you and I talked about some people that, you know, when they talk about their last name, African Americans, it's a slave name.
Right.
And we talked about people changing it, other people not changing it. And there's reasons. Share your reasoning of what you think of that, because I think it's interesting for people to understand what other people think and be able, like you said, to talk about it.
Right.
That's the most important thing, and not feel like someone's going to get mad at you because you ask, because there's a lot of ignorance in this country with many of us. But someone like you knows how to educate. And I think that the mental health issues that people go through, and we've talked about this, the stereotypes and all these things that people go through, they don't get a chance nowadays to address it because somebody's going to say, oh, you're using it as an excuse. That's bullshit. So give me your take on this, please.
No, I really like where you're coming from, because what you're doing, what you're saying, and this is what I've always liked about you, Dennis, and I had the privilege of knowing you as a kid, as a child. See, a lot of people on here don't realize, but I'm old enough to be this guy's dad. You know, I was sexually active when he started coming in the world. So anyway, tell you we're gonna have some fun. But I like where you're coming from, because we have to. When I say we, I mean we as a human race. We have to encourage people to speak up and to not be caught up in the fear or the even inability and reticence not to speak, because they feel like they get caught up in an ism. They're going to be put in a bag that they don't want to be put in. They're going to be looked at as being racist or being anti-Semite or being not black enough or not this enough and all those kind of things. You see, the thing that I've learned in my life, I've been called everything. I've been called, you know, Uncle Tom, a radical, not black enough, too black enough, anti-Semite, love Jews too much. You know, at one point you realize you just got to be you. My grandma said something very, very, I took it very early in life, and I learned to live with it. You best be who you are, because you'll never be who you ain't. And so when you...
Wow. Slow down. That's beautiful.
Yeah, you best be who you are, because you'll never be who you ain't. And that's kind of, you know, one of the things that I've kind of lived by and lived through, because now, you know, of course, being a man of faith, I'm accountable first and foremost to doing that which I believe and know that pleases God. But I do start my day after my meditation and looking at the man in the mirror. So before I go out, I got to look at me in the mirror and take an inventory over who I haven't been and wish to be over the last 24 hours. Now, in relation to your question on the slave name thing, you know, I'm West. Ain't too many English Wests from the African continent that we came from, descended from, so many generations ago. And whoever wishes to change their name, I support them 100%. That's good. That I have nothing to say about that. That's your life. That's what you should be able to do, what you want to do. But on the same token, I realize that this slave name is, quote unquote, that I wear today is not a slave name from the standpoint of what we put into it as a Black people and as a family. We may have took that name when slavery was over, but from that point on, that was our responsibility to make that name, to put all the substance and essence in that name that we put in it. That became our responsibility as a family, to put the integrity, to put the love, to put the dignity, to put the elegance, to put the service, to put all that in that name. So when a person now sees that name from West, especially in Sacramento, all over the world right now, they don't think about the.
Just so you know, like you're talking about, the West name in Sacramento and also in sports, because of what you've done, also in politics, is impeccable. Because they know when you talk about the West family, you've got love, you got sincerity, you got care, and they accept, doesn't matter who the hell you are, what you look like, where you're from. That's a beautiful thing that you just mentioned. And a lot of people don't realize that about their names.
Yeah. So name is a spectrum in time, brother. And yes, history, our future is a prologue to history, but our history is a prologue to our future. But today is what we're dealing with. See, all of us are human beings caught up in this time. We're dealing in this thing called today. Yesterday is a canceled check. Tomorrow is a promissory note. But today is the funds that you're dealing with for this 24-hour period of time. And that's what you got to get right as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, see, the beauty about what you say is there's no judgmental. You're not judgmental. And a lot of people what you just said, there's no way anybody could feel judged. And we talked about this, about the difference about people growing up with mental health issues, and, you know, what people go through, what, you know, the history, which carries on now. And we talked about how African-American men, African-American women are treated different. Now, people don't want to believe that. People say, well, you're your own worst enemy. We all are our own worst enemy. But when you have Trump people, you have people that don't want you around or say you shouldn't exist because of certain reasons. This country was, built on immigrants, right?
Right.
That's the way I look at it. So you've got your pulse with a lot of young men. I know you work with a lot of young men, African-American, from different places. What do you see that a lot of African-American young men don't choose to talk about because they feel as if they can't when it comes to mental health or asking for help?
You know, this is so important to talk about what you're talking about right now. And of course, you know, we're talking in terms of generalities, but I can tell you historically, growing up in the Black community, and I'm, you know, well into my 70s now, as part of our culture, mental health had a stigma to it. And especially when it came to Black men, you know, it was looked at as a weakness. And so much of that is carried on today. I got to believe it's not as bad today as it was when I was growing up, and even when my kids were growing up as well, which my kids were just a little younger than you. So, you know, in the Black community, that is something that we that we, you know, had to more evolve into, you know, and people were talked about when somebody, you know, really was had to be institutionalized. Well, they just had a nervous breakdown. That, you know, that was the diagnosis, the general diagnosis for the community, has just had a nervous breakdown. And so, I mean, and everything is put into that bag, whether it be congenital illnesses like maybe schizophrenia or bipolar, or whether it be more culturally induced sicknesses like depression or something like that. And of course, you know, I'm in your field. You know, this is your baby here. This is where you know a lot more than I do. But I do know that, you know, there are just so many different types of mental illnesses coming from different places. Some more induced, more exacerbated by cultural norms and so forth. But some are just congenital too. They hereditary and more biologically based.
Well, how do you look at it now with society? Okay, now they're trying to roll back all the colleges so they don't give their term affirmative action and help kids who deserve it. Because look, let's get real. We all know certain people are going to get a chance. You know, you and I have talked about it. People say white privilege. Anybody that doesn't think they have white privilege or they don't start out with white privilege is really effing ignorant. But now that people want a chance and they deserve a chance, because a lot of schools, and you've known this, your brother's been at some of the best colleges in the world teaching and been part of the academics, been part of administration. How do you think this affects a lot of people of color that when they want a chance, people keep, to this day, 2024, people keep saying you can't have it You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. And they are, but all those people get a chance based upon one thing, the color of their skin. They get a chance.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, brother. And really, when I sit down and I talk to people about this and they think about it, here's an historical context here that just puts everything in a proper perspective. First of all, well, two things. What Black Americans, Afro-Americans, I should say Afro-American Americans coming out of the Middle Passage experience, what has been the case ever since, let's just say since the ending of the Civil War, is there has been a proclivity, there's been a tendency in this nation amongst the majority, the mainstream society, to confuse progress with equality. You know, in 1866, in 1865, when the slaves were freed, so to speak, the mainstream white America says, now what do you want now? You're free. What else do you want? Well, of course, you know, we couldn't partake in any of the institutions, financial or otherwise, that were available to the other Americans and so forth. And as the generations went forward, those white generations looked back and said, oh, yeah, they were wrong. We were wrong then. They were wrong. My parents were wrong then, but not now. And this is the same people sitting in 1920 when lynching was, you know, but he was getting lynched every day.
Fuck.
So we have that problem in America of denial, coming from denial of confusing equality with just mere progress. Now, there has been progress. I fight for progress. I think America's possibilities lie so much in its democracy for progress to occur. And without democracy, I don't think it would have occurred at all. And the progress has been, I'll say it's been amazing in a lot of ways, but it also has more and a lot to do. When it comes to affirmative action, America has had affirmative action since day one. It didn't become an issue until Black folks got in the mix. Before Black, in the 1920s and so forth, you know, there was affirmative action in terms of students could come in because their parents went to the Ivy League schools, even though those people didn't even qualify to come. They just came on in. JFK came in. He wasn't qualified necessarily to go to Harvard, but he came in because who his dad was and so forth. There have been affirmative action based upon geographical parts of the country where they just didn't want everybody from the Northeast. So they opened some slots up so people from Montana and Oregon and so forth, to make a more diverse student body, could come on into these Ivy Leagues. But lo and behold, when Black folks got involved, now we got to talk about standards and so forth. Now, very interesting is this. Back to your point of opportunity. When these people come in, Black, white, or otherwise, they get the opportunity, they go through these institutions, they do very well, regardless, Black, white, Asian, whatever. They do very well. So it goes to show that maybe the standards are a little bit skewed, but it also goes to show that these people are qualified in order to take advantage of the advanced education that's taking place in those institutions, regardless of whether it be Ivy League or not.
I think just want to say one of the best things you just mentioned about people having all the rights, and then people at the same time are just as intelligent. Look at West Point. They choose not to do it.
Good point.
Look at West Point. I mean, sweet Jesus, from the beginning of military, all men and women there have helped serve this country and save this country.
That's right.
But they choose not to, and people are still pressuring a lot of politicians and this and that. And it's always interesting to me when you see the people who stand up, and people, let me ask you a question. You have some people that defend that people shouldn't have an opportunity. Well, as a white person, many white people get an opportunity based on their skin, not their intelligence, not their academic. But a lot of when it comes to affirmative action, it's not just based on your skin, it's on your intellect, your ability to learn. So you have one group getting in automatically, they can't prove shit. Another group has to prove more than anybody should have to prove. Yeah. And that's the hard part to swallow for me, because it's not changed for years. And who the hell knows what's going to change?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's the kind of the short answer of where I'm coming from on it. But just coming from there, I mean, I remember I was in 7th grade, man, and we were in this English class, and I was headed, I was in the advanced classes all the way through. And at that time, I was maybe the only black person in the class, or maybe one other black person in the class. We had 40s, 30s, and 20 track. The 40s were the highest track. And I was in that. And so I remember we had this essay that was going to be a citywide competition of all the junior high schools all throughout Sacramento. And I picked the subject of writing what it's like to be an American. I don't know why I picked that, but anyway, I picked that. And I wrote, to this day, one of the probably best essays per capita. I mean, I was only 12 years old that I could write. I mean, I've written a lot since then, but that's probably one of the, but I talked about being a privilege, being a responsibility, 12-year-old, but it just got in my spirit. But I, start talking about accountability, and I remember that paper. And the two best writers in our class, I won't say their names, but I do remember them. I showed it to them, and they said, "Oh, wow!" I read theirs, and they read mine, and they both agreed. Said, "Oh, Cliff, you're gonna definitely best in our class, but you're gonna be able to get in it." So I got the paper back from the teacher, and the teacher gave me a B-, gave them an A+. And I'll never forget, I went up to her and I says, "Why did I get a B-? I really felt like I wrote a better paper than I deserved, more than a B-." And I remember looking at me, and she says, "No black person could write anything like this. You must have plagiarized it." As if it would, not as if, because it was the norm. She felt she was perfectly in her right. She felt that in the way that she grew up, and the way, way she looked at the world and her experiences, is that no black person could write like this. Now, this wasn't long after there was integration in the schools in Sacramento. So, by the way, this is 1960.
And this took place at, how old were you? 12?
This was in Will C. Wood Junior High.
Will C. Wood Junior High School. Yep.
Yeah. So, and I remember being hurt, but I remember that I said I could not tell my parents. I just had to wear this myself, and I just had to suck this up myself and go through it. And I didn't tell my parents until I became an adult that this had happened. And this was not one incident. There were multiple incidents. But on the other hand, there's always been good white brothers and sisters to pick up the slack. Because I remember the vice principal in that 2 years later, on my 9th grade year, and him saying, "Cliff, I think we need you to run for president." I said, "No, Mr. Willett, I'm not." He says, "Yes." He said, "This school is hungry for somebody like you to run for president." I said, I can't win." He said, "I believe you can. You need to do it." And I've never forgot. Based upon what Mr. Willett said, I reluctantly ran, but I didn't write a speech. That's interesting, because I didn't write a speech because I didn't want to be accused of being plagiaristic. So when it came, everybody had long speeches in front of the school, as to why they should be president and so forth. And when it came to me, I was the last one to speak, as the Lord would have it. I got up, and all I said was this, "Dennis, if you want the best, vote for West," and sat down. Everybody went crazy.
Oh, ain't that the truth? You hit something a lot of people don't think about. That a lot of people we all wear a badge of honor, certain things in our life. Many people think that whatever they've gone through is something that, like Teflon Don, something rolls off of them. But I still think people don't realize you went through this at 12 years old. How many kids still go through this?
Yeah.
So what did they do? They shut down.
Yes,
and you don't have, and it's different parts of the country, people look at things differently. That's extremely, right. And people don't understand. If you're from the South, it's a whole different ballgame. If you're from this part, it's a whole different ballgame. If you're from Orange County versus LA versus Compton, even though it's the same area, it's a whole different world that people live in. So if you're constantly beaten down and told something like that, look, you're one of the most brilliant men, not that I just know, that many people know. The way you speak, the eloquency, but you speak the truth. You speak from no anger, even though I'm sure there's times where you had it. But the kids nowadays, how do you think the kids nowadays, someone can help the kids? Because this does affect their mental health, their judgment, their self-belief, their low self-esteem. So what are they going to do? I can't do this. I'm going to do this. And I know, me being a criminal and the crap that I've done, because you know how I grew up. You know how I grew up. You know, my mother, my grandmother, my brother, straight-laced people. There's like Jesus in them. Then there's me. There's Lucifer. You know, there's the demons or whatever. And I got no problem with who I am.
Right.
But also, I use things as excuses. How do the young kids today, African-American kids, boys and girls, or anybody of any color, how do they cope with that, and how do they get help with that? Because I know you deal with it.
It's a universal application, man. Like you said, even though it's different in terms of its how it raises its head and the different neighborhoods and so forth, dynamics in which it occurs, the handling of it, you have to find a way of turning anger into something called righteous indignation. You have to turn, because like I said, this life is short. And especially when it comes to Black people, you don't have a lot of latitude for showing a lot of anger, especially as a Black male. You just don't, And so you have to be able to count to 10 quicker than anybody else in society. But it's the same thing for white folks too. You still have to, for the betterment of our society, what we're talking about is not just the betterment of just one race or one. We're in this thing together. We really are in this thing together, man.
Go ahead, finish.
And as one gets well, we all get better. As one gets better, we all get a little bit better. You see, the person that kills another person, an innocent person that kills an innocent person, not only does the innocent person, of course, suffers with his life, and though his family and so forth suffers in grief and so forth. That's one kind of destroying that happens. But the other type of destruction that happens, the killer is being destroyed too. See, the murderer is being destroyed as well. So when I look at it like that, is that I just try to come up with devices through which we can channel this anger, this beast in us that we all have. We all have this beast. As we go through this life, it is a battle between the human part of us. Well, it's all human. The beast part of us and that other spiritual part of us. That's the battle until the day we die. But how we win that battle time after time, we're not going to win it all the time, most likely. My dad was really good at winning that battle. He was really a model to me how to win that battle. I helped Corn win the battle because Corn was a beast growing up. My younger brother, he was a beast. He fought all the time. He was, and thank God I was 2.5, 3 years older than him, that I could beat him up probably until I was in my 20s. After that, he probably could get me. But, because he could fight and he liked to fight. I could fight, but I didn't like to fight. I didn't have the heart for it like he did. Like you can fight. See, you're a fighter. You got the heart of a fighter, But your brother is like me. And you like my brother. And you're like my brother. You really are. So,
that's exactly the truth.
And so how you have evolved into sublimating your emotions now into this beautiful thing that you are doing and this beautiful person that you have become, and then helping others through it too. You're doing something that only you can do, that God put you here to do, that nobody can do it like you. And if you didn't do it, nobody else was going to do it until the end of time.
Well, thank you for those words. They mean a lot coming from you. I want to touch on something you just mentioned, which is interesting, about how a Black man, if they show anger. I was watching ESPN this morning getting ready, and they had Stephen A. Smith, and they had a gentleman on there. His name's Mad Dog. He's another sports person. And he screams, he yells, he does everything. He looks angry and everything, which he is. Stephen A. Smith said something. Now, I don't like him as an announcer a lot, but this is something he said. He goes, you know what? When I was younger, they thought I was angry. They thought I had issues. And the reality is he's the same guy he is today, gets the same thing across. And
Yeah.
then I watched a movie last night called Shot Caller. It's a story of a man who had a beautiful life, was with his family and friends, got in a wreck, had a little alcohol, he went to prison. When he went to prison, he had to choose. Which gang do you participate? He started killing. He started doing everything. He ended up at the end of the movie being the shot caller for this white supremacist. But as you said, he lost his humanity as the killer.
That's it.
And you saw the whole, from a human to a monster without anything in between.
That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Dennis. That is a good example of what I'm saying. But I like the dichotomy, the illustration between Mad Dog and Stephen A. too. I mean, Stephen A. actually makes a lot of money being that mad Negro, but he's mad within the context of something that is harmless.
So he knows what he's doing.
So he knows what he's doing. See, he's manipulating that system in that way. So he knows what he's doing. And so he's kind of opened up a whole art form now of this doing. Now, he didn't really open it up. It was already open up, but he kind of took it to a new level.
Oh, yeah.
But what I'm talking about is everyday life, because that's not really everyday life. I'm talking about everyday life, what we do to go get a job, what we do when the job. I remember when I was the first person hired at this company that I recently retired from. And I remember they start bringing black folks in there and the whole thing. And with this one lady that says she got hired and she just wasn't, she's assistant. She wasn't doing the work. She said, what they gonna do? He says, I'm black and I'm a woman. They can't fire me. Now, see, this goes both ways. What I'm trying to say.
I hear that.
And I took her to the side. I said, sister, do you know today is Tuesday? You will not be here on Friday by the time that Friday roll around with this attitude that you have. I said, but the problem is you think you're going to get fired because you're black, when in essence you're getting fired because you're trying to use your blackness as something other than excellence. So you're making it hard for the next black person. Of course, she got fired, and there was a few brothers and sisters got hired after that. But it goes both ways. We have
yes, it does.
We have to realize that, when opportunity does come around, that we have to salvage it. We have to be grateful for it. And I don't mean be grateful from the standpoint of, thank you, Mr. Man, thank you, da-da-da-da-da. Not that kind of thing. Gratitude comes out in your work ethic. And gratitude, where it starts, especially for a person of color, to the people whose shoulders you standing on. Your mother, your dad, those freedom fighters that fought. Not all of them had black skin. Some of them had white skin. Some of them had yellow skin. Some of them, whatever. Some of them was gay. Some of them was LGBTQ. Across the board. Those people who believe in people. Those people who believe in service. Those people who give it up without getting paid for it, and they do it anyway. People like you, Dennis.
No, we were raised by amazing people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty, like you said, the people you stand on. My mother, I was raised by my mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, as many people know. You had an amazing mom, dad, siblings. I mean, the great thing is your family kept you in check. Now, your family kept me in check, too. When I was young.
Your mother kept me in check, too. Now, she's one of the few. Yeah.
Tell that story about my mom just real quick about lying.
I gotta remember this, man. No,
my mother was the type of person that if she said something and she knew it was a lie, she'd tell you were lying. She'd make you be out that person. But the great thing is, you always treated my mother with respect because you were brought up to treat people with respect. I think that's one of the big things too. If you come from a family that's angry, if you come from a family that's a bunch of, and I use this, I grew up in a trailer trash, redneck, doesn't matter the color of your skin. You take on what your parents saw because that's the only person you know. Mm-hmm. You become your parents because you look up to your parents. How do you feel that people can change that if your mom and dad are just worthless human beings and they don't give a shit about humanity or other people? They're just doing their own thing. How does a child in any community work through that? Because I know you work with kids, and you're very good with that.
I look at people through the lens of what their possibilities are and what the projections are. So I could never depict anybody as trash or, trailer trash with white trash or black trash. I always looked at somebody through.
You're just a damn good person, Cliff. You know that.
The lens of their possibilities and where I could be in terms of meeting the need of that person at this time in their lives. And realizing, they know more trash than I am when it really come down to it, because I know me better than anybody else, brother. So I know where all the trash and trash bins are in my life, man. And believe me, there's plenty of them. And so, when I was with your mom to me was like a queen. She had dignity, but she wasn't like Queen Elizabeth or Queen Victoria. She was a feisty queen. She was one of those queens that you didn't want to get on the wrong side of. And so her and I had a good relationship because we could talk about stuff, personal stuff, and she would talk about you and everything, and that's when she thinks she loved about you. She said, that Dennis, he's something else. He's going to be the end of us all. But the one thing I like about my son is that he will not lie. And that's it. That's true, Dennis. I don't ever know you to lie, man. And I don't know if people want to hear all this kind of stuff. But it's good that you have to have some kind of redeeming qualities to get you through this mess.
Well, I think the thing is, we're raised by people. Look, you've been in my family for years. Phyllis, your kids, the Slaughters. I mean, Jesus, right. The whole thing. And if you look at the people you grow up with, even if your own family has issues, you tend to gravitate to those that care about you.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the whole thing. I think a lot of kids feel as if they're not cared about because maybe their parents are defeated. And when I'm saying this, I'm talking about people of color. I'm talking about women because, let's get real. The biggest minority in the world are women, the way they're treated.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's horrific the way it is. Not many people talk about that all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Because they say, women are their own worst enemies. Look, we're all our own worst enemies. Now, you working with women in the African-American community, what's the difference between the women when it comes, because you mentioned it earlier about men with mental health. What about the women? Because you're surrounded by women. You got a lot of love with women and you work with women.
Yeah, watch out now, because this thing gonna hit the world. So you
might have to move here.
we don't want to bring up old reputations, but anyway, I think women in the African American community have always been more progressive and more insightful in terms of mental health and so forth, and not only seeking it for themselves, but seeking it for their spouses, even though the spouses are very reluctant to go, and for their children. Now that has gotten better. I mean, it wasn't as good back then as I think it is now, but I think there's a great chasm, a great separation between the way Black women look at mental health and seeking it, definitely, and the way Black men do. I think Black men is still a stigma and so forth, and where Black women are a lot more progressive and open to it. That's my experience, definitely. That because I remember being pushed by it, and I was like, I've gone through some depression. I didn't want to admit it. And things you lose your parents, you go through some, and then I've lost a lot of people in my life. Like you said, mentoring young men and so mainly young men more than young women, but I've lost a lot of young men, man, especially Black young men over the years that every time I lose, seem like Dennis, it's just like a part of me just gone that can never come back. It's just like we're sitting in a room, man, and the room is full of people, and then death walks in, grabs somebody, don't tell you which one is going to grab somebody and walks out, but leaves a note, and the note says, "I will be back." And that's the kind of way, all of our lives are. It's not just my life. All of our lives are. And we all have to have coping systems in order to get through that. And I've been very fortunate as to my faith and being deep into my faith, even though I haven't I've been a rascal. I've been a rambunctious rascal, but I've always believed, and I know that he's always had his arms around me. So I know that I'm going to be here as long as he deems me to be here to do what it is that he has ordained for me to do, and that is to serve. That is to have conversations like this. Hopefully, if one person can get something out of this, then it was a success.
Well, I got to tell you, I get a lot out of this. Every time I talk to you, it's a whole different thing for me, because number one, you're talking to someone who's like you, but also different. And I think people don't realize that we're all alike in many ways. I don't give a damn where you come from. I mean, why do you think God allowed women to have babies? Didn't give it to men. I mean, think about it. That's a big responsibility.
That's
and
right.
At the same time, like you're talking about African-American women as opposed to, African-American men. African-American women, they are the glue.
Yeah.
They are the glue, and they will let you know it. And that's the beauty of it. Growing up, they will let you know. Phyllis is your mom, my mom, all the different ladies let you know it, because there's that nurturing thing.
Well, your mom definitely had African-American woman culture all in and over her, because
her whole life.
Oh my God! I mean, she was something. She was a big mama. In what we call in our culture, that dominant woman, so to speak, that matriarch who runs things and who's the most respected, and who you don't want to be on the wrong side of, who you can't win with. That's what it is. You cannot win going up against this person. That's the big mama. That's your mother. That's your mother.
Thank you. Yes. My mother, up until 2 days before she could stop talking, I was still telling her she was wrong, just because that's our relationship. But you know what? I just want to thank you for coming on today. You're coming on again. We're going to talk about different subjects, but it means the world to me that you would come on here and share your insight is what people need to hear, because not only is it logical, it's factual. People don't know history. I mean, I'm not saying I know history, but every time I talk to you, I learn something more. And that's the beauty of people I always love when people say, don't worry about the past. If you don't worry about the past, the present and the future are never going to exist.
That's right.
That's the way. This whole thing where they don't want kids to learn in school about, hey, you know what? Pardon me. Go fuck yourself, the white groups that want that. I had a friend of mine, no longer in my life, because he thought that, woke was wrong. And I said, well, there's different ways of looking at it. Different ways. And he goes, well, you just don't. I'm like, yeah, okay, I've been in my life for 50 years, no longer in my life. And I will never, I told his wife, when he dies, I don't even want to notice. Because when you're that blind and you have that much hatred for people, we all need to learn our past. It'd be amazing if people took the time to learn about their own family history.
Right.
know yours, and you know history. So I love you, my friend. Thank you. This means a lot to me.
Love you to life. Nothing you can do about it. And I look forward to talking with you again, brother.
Oh, we'll talk soon. By the way, who's sitting behind you? The picture, tell everybody who those is. Those are your kids.
That's my oldest daughter, Erica, and my youngest son, Cornell. My two kids. They're in their 50s now.
And they're beautiful people.
That was when they were 5 and 3. Lord,
that's a great picture. All I got is me, so I don't have any kids, and I think God made that choice. So, all right, my friend, I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Love you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right now.
This was Living in My Mind. Cornell West, what a great man and a great story that he shared with everybody. Please listen to what the man has to say. It means a lot, and it's real. Thank you for listening. You could always use the number below. Reach out if you need anything, if you'd like help. We'll always be here, and we make a difference, and you can too. Thank you.